Nagaara, Rise of the Dragon Queen. Nagaara's earliest memories were a haze of sorrow and solitude. She had been abandoned at the orphanage as an infant, with nothing but a scrap of cloth embroidered with a golden dragon and her name, written in elegant script, to suggest she came from somewhere or someone who cared. The orphanage was a cold, unkind place, where meals were scant and affection was non-existent. Each night, as she lay on the hard, creaking cot, she would stare at the scrap of cloth and wonder why her parents had left her. Was it because she was unworthy? Was she destined to be unwanted forever? As she grew, those questions twisted into a deep ache in her chest. The other children, sensing her difference, never missed a chance to taunt her. "Freak," they'd whisper, pointing at her golden eyes, which shimmered unnaturally like molten metal. They avoided her touch, claiming her skin was too warm, almost feverish. Nagaara tried to hide the things that made her stand out, but the feeling of being an outcast clung to her like a second skin. Her longing for love, for belonging, was a wound that never healed, and every cruel word only deepened the scar. By the time she was 10, the orphanage had sold her into servitude to a wealthy noble family. They treated her as little more than a beast of burden, assigning her grueling tasks and punishing her harshly for the smallest mistakes. The constant weight of the iron collar around her neck, engraved with runes designed to suppress her potential, became a physical reminder of her imprisonment and a symbol of her worthlessness. Her life was a cycle of pain and exhaustion, each day blending into the next without hope of relief. At first, she dreamed of escape, imagining a life beyond the high walls of the estate, where she could run free under the open sky. But the punishments for even a hint of defiance were brutal, leaving her body battered and her spirit fractured. The noble family's scornful words echoed in her mind. "You're nothing, just a tool for our use." Over time, those words became her reality. She stopped dreaming of freedom, stopped imagining a better life. It was easier to survive by numbing herself to the pain and burying her desires. She didn't understand why she'd been singled out for such suffering, but she stopped questioning it. Perhaps this was all she was ever meant to be. The weight of the collar around her neck was matched only by the weight of her resignation. She had already given up on the idea that life could hold anything more than this bleak, unending servitude. Nagaara's world began to shift when she turned 17. Whispers of a grand celebration reached even her, despite her lowly status. The crown Prince Aedric was approaching his 18th birthday, and with it, his first dragon shift. It was a sacred rite of passage for dragons, marking their ascension into adulthood. On occasion, Nagaara was sent to the royal castle to assist during grand events or perform menial chores in the sprawling halls. It was during these visits that she caught glimpses of the prince. With his chiseled features, raven black hair, and piercing sapphire eyes, Aedric exuded a presence that was both commanding and captivating. To her, he seemed untouchable, a being from a world far removed from her own. Sometimes she would linger in the shadows, just to watch him laugh or speak with his court, her heart aching with a bittersweet longing. But such thoughts were foolish. She was nothing more than a slave, a ghost in the eyes of the nobility. Aedric, with all his grace and power, would never notice someone like her. And yet she couldn't stop the fleeting hope that maybe, just maybe, her life could be different. The morning of the celebration, Nagaara woke to an electric hum coursing through her veins. Her skin felt like it was vibrating, and an overwhelming sense of anticipation gripped her. She brushed it off as nerves. "Maybe it's the prince's shift affecting the air," she whispered to herself as she carried a tray of refreshments to the courtyard. The festivities were in full swing, with nobles dressed in their finest, their garments shimmering in the light of countless lanterns strung across the grand courtyard. The scent of exotic spices and freshly baked delicacies mingled in the air, and the sound of jubilant music echoed through the estate. Aedric stood at the center of it all, his commanding presence drawing every eye as he prepared for his first shift. The event everyone had been waiting for. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, and even the humblest servants paused in their duties to steal a glimpse of the momentous occasion. The crowd fell silent as Aedric closed his eyes, his hands clenching at his sides. A deep, resonant hum seemed to vibrate through the air as his body began to glow, a pulsating deep blue aura enveloping him like a cocoon. Gasps rippled through the crowd as his form started to shift, his back arching as massive midnight black wings erupted with an audible crack. His skin shimmered as obsidian scales rippled outward, catching the light and reflecting it in a dazzling display. A powerful roar erupted from his lips, a sound that echoed with both agony and triumph. In moments, the handsome prince was no more, replaced by a magnificent midnight dragon, his form towering over the gathering and casting a shadow across the stunned onlookers. The crowd erupted in cheers, but their jubilation was short-lived. Aedric's tail, massive and unwieldy in his new form, swung wildly and struck a nearby serving girl. The crowd gasped as Nagaara was thrown backward, her tray clattering to the ground. The impact shattered the iron collar around her neck, and a surge of power unlike anything she'd ever known consumed her. Golden light engulfed Nagaara as her body transformed. Her skin burned with a fiery warmth, and her senses exploded in a whirlwind of sensations. She felt her limbs stretch and strengthen, the bones and muscles reshaping themselves with a mixture of pain and exhilaration. Her ears buzzed with a deep, resonant hum, as if the universe itself was singing to her, and her vision blurred momentarily before sharpening into crystal clarity. The air around her seemed to vibrate with energy, her wings bursting forth with an audible snap, their sheer size and power making her gasp in shock. Her heart raced as her new form solidified, and for the first time she felt truly alive, every fiber of her being pulsating with untapped power and purpose. Her limbs stretched, her skin hardened into scales of white and gold with a pearl-like sheen, and massive wings sprouted from her back. Gasps and cries of astonishment filled the air as she let out a thunderous roar that shook the ground. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. She had just shifted into a dragon, a powerful dragon. Panic gripped her, a cold, suffocating fear that wrapped around her chest like the iron collar she had worn for so long. She had no idea how to control this form, and the stares of the crowd were suffocating. Her mind raced with thoughts of what would happen next. Would they drag her back and punish her for disrupting the prince's moment? Would she be whipped, humiliated, or worse, for daring to shift into something she didn't understand? The memories of past punishments surged to the surface, and her wings trembled with the urge to flee. With a powerful beat of her wings, she launched herself into the sky, leaving behind a trail of golden light. Below, chaos erupted as people scrambled to understand what they had just witnessed. Only one figure seemed calm: the old dragon wizard, Eldrin, who served the royal family. His ancient eyes widened in recognition, and he whispered, "The crown princess has returned." Nagaara flew for what felt like hours, her heart pounding as though it would tear free from her chest, her mind a storm of confusion and fear. The air felt thin and cold, but she hardly noticed as her thoughts spiraled. She eventually landed on a remote mountain range, the jagged peaks looming like silent sentinels. The harsh wind bit at her scales, yet she felt no relief from the burning turmoil within. Her limbs trembled as she folded her wings, collapsing onto the rocky terrain. Her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps, as the enormity of what had just happened crashed over her. She had no idea who or what she truly was. A servant one moment, a dragon the next. But not just any dragon. The sheer power coursing through her veins was undeniable, yet terrifying. It felt foreign and overwhelming, like an endless ocean she could drown in at any moment. Tears stung her eyes as a voice in her mind whispered cruelly, "You don't deserve this. You'll only bring trouble. You're nothing but a slave." Her chest tightened and she clutched at the ground, wishing she could make herself smaller, wishing she could disappear entirely. A shadow passed over her, and she looked up to see a familiar midnight dragon circling above. Prince Aedric. He landed a safe distance away, his massive form shrinking as he shifted back into his human self. He approached cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "You don't have to run," he said softly. "I'm not here to harm you." Nagaara hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to flee, but something in his voice made her stay. Shyly, she shifted back into her human form, her tattered dress hanging loosely on her now unbound frame. Aedric's eyes widened as he took in her appearance, not just in astonishment, but with a growing sense of admiration. Her golden eyes, so luminous and striking, seemed to hold an entire universe within them, and her presence, even in her disheveled state, radiated an otherworldly grace that left him momentarily breathless. For a fleeting moment he saw not the servant girl he had barely noticed before, but someone extraordinary, someone who had endured unimaginable hardship and emerged radiant. The realization stirred something deep within him, a mix of respect, protectiveness, and an unfamiliar yearning he couldn't quite place. "You, or the servant girl," he said, astonishment lacing his tone. "How is this possible?" "I don't know," Nagaara replied, her voice shaky. "I didn't even know I could shift until now." Before Aedric could respond, a new voice echoed through the mountains. "Because she is more than just a dragon. She is royalty, my prince." Eldrin emerged from the shadows, his staff glowing faintly. Despite his age, he moved with a grace that belied his years. He bowed deeply to Nagaara, surprising both her and Aedric. "Princess Nagaara," he said, his voice reverent. "You are the eldest daughter of King Alaric and Queen Lysandra, rightful rulers of the Dragon Kingdom and direct descendant from the Mother of Dragons herself." Nagaara stared at him, her mind reeling. "That's not possible. I've been a slave my whole life." Eldrin nodded solemnly. "After your parents were betrayed and murdered by your uncle, I used my magic to save you and your siblings. I hid each of you in different parts of the kingdom, far from his reach. You were meant to grow up in safety, but fate had other plans." Aedric stepped forward, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "If she's the crown princess, that means—" Eldrin nodded. "She is the last universe dragon, a being of unparalleled power. Her very existence could change the fate of our world." Nagaara's head spun as she tried to absorb the revelation. She had always felt out of place, but to learn that she was royalty, the heir to a fallen kingdom, was almost too much to bear. She was about to get a panic attack. "What am I supposed to do with this?" she asked, her voice breaking, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to be a dragon, let alone a princess." Eldrin stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You don't have to decide everything now, but you must embrace who you are. The Dragon Kingdom needs you. Your uncle's tyranny may be over, but the scars he left still linger. With you and your siblings united, we can bring hope back to our people." Aedric placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this. Whatever you choose to do, I'll stand by you." Nagaara looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude and something deeper she didn't fully understand. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as a slave or an orphan, but as someone with worth and purpose. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her spine. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "But I'll need help finding my siblings first. If we're going to rebuild, we have to do it together." Eldrin smiled, his expression one of pride. "Then let us begin, Princess Nagaara. Your destiny awaits." As the sun set over the mountains, its golden rays illuminating her pearl-like scales, Nagaara felt a spark of hope ignite within her. For the first time, she believed that her future could be more than just survival. it could be extraordinary. With Aedric by her side, Nagaara began the journey to find her siblings. Guided by Aedric's steady encouragement, she learned to harness her burgeoning powers, discovering a unique ability to sense the presence of her kin, a faint, pulsing connection that grew stronger as they ventured closer. Aedric's unwavering faith in her abilities bolstered her confidence, and the long hours they spent together sparked an intimacy she had never known, their bond deepening with each shared triumph and quiet moment. The first sibling they found was Kael, the fire dragon, chained in a dark volcanic mine where he was forced to fuel the forges with his flames. The searing heat and smoke were suffocating, but Aedric's protective instincts never wavered as he shielded Nagaara while they fought their way through the cruel overseers. When Kael's bonds were broken, his fiery temper ignited in a blaze of vengeance, his raw strength turning the tide. Nagaara felt an unspoken connection to her brother, his gratitude shining as brightly as his scales. Their next mission took them to the coast where Saria, the water dragon, was held captive in a fortress atop a treacherous cliff. The warlord who controlled her used her powers to command the tides, enslaving her to his greed. Navigating the stormy seas and rocky terrain was perilous, and Aedric's steady presence became Nagaara's anchor amidst her growing fears. When they freed Saria, her calm demeanor masked a fierce determination, her powers flowing like the ocean, unstoppable once unleashed. Aedric's admiration for Nagaara deepened as he watched her comfort Saria, their shared triumph bringing them closer. In the dense forest of the Eastern Kingdom, they uncovered Eris, the air dragon, enslaved by a merchant caravan to manipulate winds for faster travel. Eris's light-hearted humor masked years of pain, but her joy was infectious when they broke her chains. Nagaara and Aedric worked seamlessly to outwit the caravan guards, their trust in each other growing with every obstacle they overcame. Eris's laughter, like a breeze, renewed their spirits, and Aedric couldn't help but steal glances at Nagaara, his admiration for her courage turning into something deeper. Finally, they reached Theros, the earth dragon, imprisoned in a stone quarry where his immense strength was exploited to move mountains of rock. The battle to free him was their most dangerous yet, the very earth trembling under the weight of their struggle. Theros' stoic nature was unyielding, but when his chains fell, his loyalty to Nagaara was as solid as the ground beneath their feet. Aedric's relief was palpable as he pulled Nagaara into a protective embrace, their bond solidifying as he vowed to stand by her side, no matter the trials ahead. Each sibling's rescue was a story of resilience and unity, fraught with danger, but filled with moments of quiet tenderness between Nagaara and Aedric. As they reunited, the weight of her destiny no longer felt unbearable. With her siblings at her side and Aedric's unwavering support, Nagaara felt the spark of hope growing into a flame, her heart opening to the possibility of a future filled with love and strength. When the group finally returned to the royal palace, they were met with an awe-inspiring sight. Eldrin stood waiting with the king, queen, and the entire palace staff lining the grand entrance, their expressions warm and welcoming. Cheers erupted as the siblings stepped forward, their presence a symbol of renewed hope for dragonkind. Nagaara's heart swelled as the royal family embraced her and her siblings, treating them not as strangers, but as long-lost kin. Once the initial celebration calmed, Aedric addressed the gathering, his voice steady and filled with conviction. Today, we welcome back not just the heirs of an ancient noble lineage, but the saviors of our kind. Nagaara, he continued, turning to her with a soft smile. Your name means Dragon Queen, and it was always your destiny to lead. Together with your siblings in the royal army, we will restore the dragon world to its former glory. Under Nagaara's leadership and with the combined might of her siblings and Aedric's guidance, they worked tirelessly to rebuild. The days were long, but filled with moments of laughter and camaraderie as Nagaara and her siblings grew closer. Around a crackling fire one evening, Kyle grinned as he recounted his first attempt at flying. I ended up in a thorn bush, and Saria had to haul me out. Saria chuckled, her melodic laughter filling the air. You're lucky I didn't leave you there. Eris added, remember when I sent that gust of wind to knock you into the pond? That was fun. Even Theros, stoic as ever, smirked as he said, Kale's been a walking disaster since we hatched. Their shared memories and playful teasing reminded Nagaara of what she had missed, and the bond between them deepened with every passing day. Aedric often joined these moments, his presence a steady source of comfort for Nagaara. One night, as they watched the stars, he turned to her with a soft smile. You've brought your siblings together in a way no one else could. It's incredible to watch. Nagaara felt her cheeks warm under his gaze, her heart fluttering at the sincerity in his voice. I couldn't have done it without you, she admitted. Their hands brushed, and for a moment the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them under the vast, starry sky. Within a year, the once fractured dragon kingdom became a thriving realm. Slavery was abolished, agriculture flourished, and trade routes reopened, allowing prosperity to return. Inspired by Nagaara's past, the legal system was reformed to ensure fairness and justice for all, and the kingdom's people felt safe and secure for the first time in generations. The crowning ceremony was a moment of unmatched splendor. Nagaara stood before the gathered kingdom, her golden scales glinting in the sunlight, her siblings flanking her with pride. Eldrin placed the intricately crafted crown upon her head, its design a testament to her lineage, adorned with the sigils of the elements and the universe itself. As the crowd erupted in cheers, Nagaara raised her hand for silence, her voice steady and filled with emotion. My people, she began. Today, we begin anew. Together, we will build a kingdom where every dragon is free, where justice reigns, and where hope thrives. She turned to Aedric, her eyes shimmering with both love and determination. But I cannot do this alone. It is with the greatest honor and love that I ask Prince Aedric to stand by my side, not just as an ally, but as my husband and king. Aedric's eyes widened, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Then, a radiant smile broke across his face as he stepped forward and took her hands. There is nothing I would want more, he said, his voice filled with conviction and tenderness. I vow to serve this kingdom and you, Nagaara, with all that I am. The kingdom erupted in celebration as the couple embraced, their bond a symbol of unity and hope for dragonkind. Together, with Nagaara's vision and Aedric's steadfast support, they led the kingdom into a golden age, their love as enduring and brilliant as the crown she wore.